Well, now I have a better explanation of what's going on, and this show now wants me to hate the character that they're following rather than like the character. Hey guys, Cameron for Dead of Summer, Season 1, Episode 2, Barney Rubble, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I really enjoyed the premiere overall. I thought it was definitely a lot of fun. I also thought there was a really good story here, and I kind of like the way that this show was going to be told. Each episode being focusing on a different character, and that's exactly what this episode was. But like I said in the intro, this episode, rather than trying to get us to like the character we're following, this episode gets us to hate the character, really. I mean, I've never really seen a flashback show, show that shows that focuses on characters heavily in flashbacks make us hate the character so much, because the character we follow in this episode, I can't stand after this episode. I hate this character, I want to get killed off, and I don't like him at all. But overall, I definitely did enjoy this episode. This definitely was a really good episode. Despite the character we were following, I still really did enjoy this episode. I thought we had a better explanation of what was going on here. There was actually some really creepy scenes in this episode, and I'm not going to lie to you, the show is scaring me a lot more than I thought it would. There were, like, quite a few times where I was quite scared, but let's just get in this episode, because overall, I really did enjoy what was going on in this episode. I'm enjoying the show overall. Actually, I'm kind of enjoying it more than Guilt, to be honest with you guys, but let's just get into it. And also, I will say, this episode, I think, definitely was a better, they definitely felt more like the 80s than the first episode did. But we actually start off not in the 80s, we start off in 1977 as we meet Alex, or a young Alex, or Alexei as he was called. He's basically told by his parents that they have to leave the Soviet Union for America, and Alex's grandfather is too old to make the journey with the family, so Alex has to say goodbye to him. His grandfather's parting wisdom is to tell Alex that this world does not give him anything, so if you want something, you have to take it. And throughout the episode, we kind of get that message for Alex, but I feel like the big message is that Alex took that, advice to heart way too much, we definitely see. So we then go back to the present day, in 1989, and we see Alex and Blotter are getting ready for first official day at camp. I don't even know if we really saw Blotter in the last episode. I mean, we saw him, definitely. We didn't really get a name for him, but that relationship is very important, very precedent for this episode. That's like the main friendship that we're following, and overall, I really did like seeing these two bond, but basically, all the counselors we realize are getting together to welcome the campers on their first day, because as we know, the first episode, they realize that they can, in fact, welcome campers, so they're getting ready for that. We see the piano man watching the campers as they arrive, and it's really creepy, honestly. The guy we saw in the first episode, who's somehow connected to all this. I don't know how he's connected to this, but that's basically how we start things off, and instead of focusing on the children under their care, because, that's what a normal counselor would do, they decide to make a bet involving the girls that they're crushing on, and I kind of like this, because honestly, it's kind of realistic. The fact that these guys are running the camp, but they're not really caring about the kids, I can understand. I mean, someone like that, someone who are like Alex and Blotter, I'm sure they get very distracted and things like that. They clearly like the girls, and, girls more important than the kids, which I thought was definitely very interesting. But anyway, Blotter bets Alex $50 that he hooks up with Cricket before Alex gets with Amy, and we don't really get a lot with Amy in this episode, even though we had a lot of Amy in the last episode, and she seemed to be our main character. She's not in this episode a ton. She's in a good amount, but she's not in this episode a lot, and Alex and Blotter then basically ignore it when some of the campers start picking on a young Russian boy, and this pretty much, I think, really starts out what we're going to see here, that we see this young Russian boy here, Anton, and I thought that definitely showed why we're getting these flashbacks, because it's something that Alex is obviously used to, because we see in Alex's childhood, his father went to work at a dry cleaners upon arriving in the States, and the owner is an absolute asshole. I mean, this guy is just like, you are in my country, you're gonna work under my rules, you're gonna, work like you're American, and it's an interesting scene. He treats Alexei and his father like crap because they're Russian. He tells Alexei that he should change his name to something more American sounding, and Alexei decides to go by Alex Powell from then on. It's kind of a good scene. I like the way that was done. Seeing that he had to change his name, he had to lose the accent and everything, which I always found kind of interesting. The fact that they completely abandoned the accent once they got to America, I thought was really interesting that we saw that. So, Alex Powell, that's what became the Alex Powell that he is today, and I just found that story really interesting. I watched The Americans. You guys guys know how much I love that show. Granted, this was not nearly as interesting as The Americans, but I did find overall interesting just seeing the discrimination that the commies, as they called them, went through. You know, definitely what they had to go through. The fact that they could tell that they were Russian, I just thought was overall really interesting. The fact they treated them like shit, because the Cold War was in fact going on at this point. And 1989, it wasn't going on anymore, but 1977, it definitely was. I just thought overall was really interesting. So I definitely really did like seeing that. Back at camp, Alex is trying to flirt with Amy to pay attention to the young Russian boy who's seemingly talking to this imaginary friend, and it's really creepy. We don't know who this kid is, but he's talking to an imaginary friend, and definitely you can tell that there's definitely something going on there, especially given what Amy saw. You can definitely tell something's going on. And Alex is once again distracted from his job when he spots Blotter meeting with a drug dealer, and eventually Alex heads into the woods, finds the young Russian boy Anton talking to his imaginary friend again, and Alex asks Anton who he's talking to, and Anton gives the Piano Man official name, and that is the Tall Man. That is his name now, and things get even more disturbing when Anton has a dream about the Tall Man marking him, and the mark is a message that says, "Find me." And again, I'm kind of starting to think the Tall Man's not the bad guy here, that maybe he's trying to warn them about something, or maybe he's just there to tell them the dangers afoot. I don't really know, because if you think about it, nothing that bad has happened. I mean, yeah, the janitor died, but other than that, nothing that terrifying has happened, except they're seeing ghosts. That's really all that's going on. I feel like he's kind of like a warning as to what's going on, because we don't necessarily know if he killed all of those children in the camp. We don't know. All we know is that he was the last one standing, he was playing the piano, and he was the last one there. So I don't know if he caused it or if he saw something, but I'm assuming that he is a warning. I don't think he's actually there to kill him. I think that's why he's there, but we'll have to see what happens, I guess, as the season goes on. Right now, though, that's something, is that he's a warning. So we then see Deputy Sykes. He's at a bar watching a news broadcast about Satanists hiding in plain sight, and the bartender, Sykes' mom, is concerned about what he's seen on the job recently. She tells him to pull the tough cop act with her because she got enough of that when his father was alive. And while they're talking, the drug dealer Blotter, met in the woods, enters the bar with some of his friends, and Sykes asks the drug dealer if he knows anything about ritualistic killings, like what happened in the deer they found in the woods by the camp, and the drug dealer feigns innocence, and Sykes warns him against drugs, selling drugs in the woods. Now the camp is opened, and obviously, you know, he can't just sell drugs anywhere. This is a camp after all. So back at camp, Alex is surprised to find liquid acid among the items that Blotter got from the drug dealer, and apparently all Blotter, we find out, really wanted was weed, but he's not throwing out the free sample even if he doesn't plan to use it while at camp. And obviously you can't do drugs at camp, and Alex mentions seeing Blotter, the drug dealer in the woods, says that he doesn't think that Deb would be pleased to learn about that. Now, a normal friend would try to help his friend here, but Alex doesn't do that. Alex taunts Blotter, and this really starts to get us to not like Alex. I already didn't like Alex because he was completely ignoring the kid he's supposed to be following when he's in the exact same situation, but Blotter counters by saying that Deb probably wouldn't be happy to learn that Alex is a thief either, and Blotter explains how he figured out that Alex stole the nice clothes he's been wearing, but Alex doesn't own up to it, and after some brief tension, the guys agree to keep each other's secrets, basically, for what's going on. So we find out that Blotter did in fact get the weed because he was hoping that Cricket would want to smoke it with him. Yeah, because that makes sense. You're in a camp, you're going to smoke weed. I honestly don't understand it either, but this is how he thought he could bond with her, is by smoking weed, but she's obviously not interested. She actually only has eyes for Alex nowadays, and Jesse notices Cricket's interest in Alex and offers to help her out with him for old time's sake. And we also know that Jesse's a bit jealous of Amy and Sykes, because she does in fact like Sykes. Sykes was Braceface, and he was Townie, and that's just someone that she likes, and that's going on. So Jesse plots ways to keep Alex away from Amy. Alex manipulates Amy into going on a date with him. He bribed one of his cameras into pretending to be homesick so Amy would see Alex comforting the kid. And I really am liking Amy, I gotta say. It's obvious. I think it's pretty obvious of what's going on. She could tell definitely it was an obvious setup. But Jesse then warns Amy against trusting Alex, saying that he will do anything to get what he wants, and that she just can't really trust him. That this is not a guy that she should be allied with. And again, it's just interesting that the character we're following, this show does not want us to like. I found that really interesting. And again, I think that was intentional. I don't think the show wanted us to like Alex. I think they're trying to show that Alex is not that great of a guy, even though despite what he went through, he took his advice, he took his grandfather's advice to heart way too much. And later that night, Alex finds Anton after the kid sleepwalks his way into the art studio. Anton draws a picture of a clearing with a weird rock formation, and Anton tells Alex that this is where I'll find him. Anton says that if he doesn't find the tall man, someone is going to die if he doesn't find him. So you pretty much get the sense that he's not going to find the tall man, because I'm thinking, okay, someone's going to die, right? I didn't think he was actually going to find him, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So Deb is upset that Anton was able to wander off on the first day of camp where Alex and Blotter were supposed to be watching him, yet instead of focusing on doing their jobs so they don't get fired, they're still all about which one of them will win the bet, which again is just ridiculous that they're not at all focused on this. I mean, it's just, get it through your head, and I get that they're supposed to be stupid, but just get it through your head. And Blotter thinks that he can win cricket over by staging a raid later that night, but Alex has a date with Amy, so he won't be in attendance, and that night Alex takes Amy to this abandoned cabin for their date. He takes her there so they can be alone, because totally nothing bad happens in an abandoned cabin, right? So he can impress her with his piano playing skills, and he does actually impress her with that. But Amy, and you're assuming that this is the same room that we saw the tall man in the first scene, but Amy starts to see the good side of Alex after he plays for her. He tells her that he learned how to play from his grandfather, but his father made him stick with it, and basically that he's played the piano ever since. Alex then sees his grandfather's ghost in the cabin with them, but instead of freaking out, he just closes his eyes until the ghost just disappears. I don't know why he didn't freak out. I'm assuming, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking his grandfather's haunted him all his life. I'm thinking he's always thought of his advice. He's always kind of thought his grandfather was there, and I thought that definitely was interesting that we saw that. But just like Amy saw, Margot, Alex is seeing his grandfather, which again is really interesting. So during the raid, Blotter shows Cricket some toy figures he found under his old bunk they used to play with when they were kids. Blotter uses this walk down memory lane as a chance to kiss Cricket, but she turns away, finally seems to understand that she's not interested in him. He actually gets it through his head, and while Blotter takes his cameras on the raid, Anton sneaks off in the woods to follow the tall man. It takes way too long, but eventually Blotter realizes that Anton is missing again, and instead of going to Deb, he interrupts Alex's date with Amy so Alex can help look for Anton, which I thought was smart to do. This was supposed to be Alex's kid, so I think it was the right thing to do for Blotter to go to Alex. And once Deb learns of Anton's disappearance, she calls in Deputy Sykes and the sheriff, and they all search for Anton, but Alex is the one who gets him first. Alex then finds Anton at a clearing with the same rock formation he drew earlier. He tells Alex that he's here, but Alex doesn't think to actually search the clearing to find out what Anton is talking about. Again, Alex is just, he's the worst. He really is. He's probably the worst character on the show, and Deb is beyond angry that Alex and Blotter let Anton go missing on their watch again. She vows that one of them is going to go down for it, and that the next time this happens, one of them is going to get fired. And that's very important for what happens a little bit later, but the sheriff asks if anyone's been hanging around the camp, and no one mentions the drug dealer and everything. So Sykes, however, suspects that the drug dealer may be behind Anton's disappearance, as he could be considered a tall man and has been known to sell drugs near the camp. Now, if this ends up being just one big hallucination, I'm going to be really upset, because I actually like this idea of the tall man, but the show is kind of making it seem like this might be a hallucination. And Sykes then tracks down the drug dealer, brings him in for questioning, and you can tell that definitely something is going to happen here. You don't know, again, if the tall man's a good guy or not, but I overall thought that definitely was very interesting. But then we get to the stuff I know you want me to talk about, which is probably the creepiest scene we've had so far in this show. I mean, this by far, this scared me, genuinely. I thought this was scary. Blotter's freaking out that Deb may fire them for what happened with Anton, and after seeing his grandfather's ghost for the second time that night, Alex decides to take action to save his own job. And I don't know what the fuck he was thinking here, but he literally puts liquid acid in Blotter's drink, then proving to be the worst friend ever, literally has Blotter drink it, and Blotter starts hallucinating thanks to the drugs. He eventually follows through on Anton's mission to find the tall man. It turns out to be the clearing where the tall man's body was buried. Blotter's thrilled with this discovery, but when he takes Deb back, and there's so many weird things going on here. He looks at himself and his face is like melting off. There's like a ton coming out of Alex's mouth. Really good, creepy stuff here. I thought that definitely the images here looked really good. The tall man's body was buried. Blotter's thrilled with this discovery. When he takes Deb back to the location, the tall man's remains are gone, and we see that the drug dealer who was released because they had no evidence against him has the tall man's bones, and we also see him tell his friends that it has begun. So we don't know what that's all about. How is he connected to the tall man? What's going on there? Deb then fires Blotter, obviously, because he was on drugs, realizing that he's high, tells him to have his things packed by morning, and The next day, Blotter says goodbye to his fellow counselors, confronts Alex about drugging him. Alex won't admit that he did it, but Blotter knows that he was the only one who could have dosed him because he, of course, had the acid, and he knows that Alex was the one behind this. Blotter then congratulates Alex for winning their bets. Amy's upset when she realizes that Alex was just using her, and this is the thing I like. I like that they don't want us to like Alex. They don't try to make Alex seem like a good guy here. On the other hand, Cricket's delighted because this means that Amy's no longer a threat to a potential relation with Alex, which, I don't know, I don't really care about the whole Cricket storyline with Alex. I think it's kind of dumb overall that she's, really is that shallow that she doesn't care that Alex did this. I mean, any regular human would be upset that he did something like this, but once Blotter's gone, Alex decides to be nice to Anton, or his version of nice. He speaks to Anton in Russian, tells the boy that it'd be good for him to choose a more American-sounding name. He then helps Anton get revenge of the boys who have been teasing him. Very interesting the way that was done, and we see flashbacks to 1988, a year less before the show. Alex gets a job working at the same dry cleaners his father worked at when he was a kid. The owner doesn't recognize him. Alex doesn't reveal their connection. It's not long before Alex catches his married boss messing around with his employee. Alex records them, uses the tape as part of a blackmail scheme. He tells his boss he will keep the woman from telling the guy's wife what went on, and in return, Alex wants his boss to let him take clothes whenever he wants. Apparently, Alex wanted to project an image of success when he returned to camp, so he blackmails his boss into letting him steal from their customers, and this is how Alex's way of following his grandfather's advice to take what you want from the world, which I don't think was what his grandfather was trying to say. He was trying to say anything you want, you try to get, but Alex is clearly stealing. We now know that he was stealing. I thought that he was stealing. He is stealing, and he's also the worst on the show. Probably the worst character is Alex, definitely, but this episode definitely showed that. The episode's not trying to get us, again, to sympathize with him. It's trying to show why he is the way he is, and I definitely did like seeing that. I thought overall, it was a good origin story for him. Like, we understand why this kid is so selfish. We understand why he thinks of himself and why he doesn't really care about others, because he listens to his grandfather's advice, but he goes a bit overboard with it. And I think like many teenagers do. Many teenagers go overboard. That's what Alex did, and really, Alex, like I said, by far the worst character in the show. But then we get to the final scene here, which is just crazy. We see Blotter leaving the camp on his own. He eventually spots the tall man, but the ghost seems less threatening than he did with Anton. The tall man points behind him. Blotter turns around, and whatever Blotter sees obviously terrifies him, and we don't know if Blotter is dead or not. I'm going to assume that Blotter was killed because he was only a recurring character, but that's how the episode ends. We don't know what else is going on there. I guess the only other thing to talk about is that there are a couple of things that we did see. Joel, we find out, actually is a major crush on Deb, the one that's filming everything. He actually is a crush on Deb. This I don't like. I don't like this whole thing with Deb and him. She catches him snooping around her office. She doesn't seem that interested in him, but that could be because he comes dangerously close to opening the boxes she dug up in the previous episode. Later on, she approaches Joel when he's alone, asks about the camera attached to his hand. He apparently likes watching people through the lens because cameras don't lie, but Deb tells him that she's a private person and he's smart enough to realize that she is usually code for someone having a secret. So definitely interesting the way that was done, but I don't want Joel to like Deb. I just don't like it. I think it's weird overall. Elizabeth Mitchell's great. I think she's a great actress, but I just don't really like where they're going with this. I'd rather it be that Joel knows what's going on. He's filming things, because we still don't really know why he's filming everything. There wasn't any of Joel filming everything, though, in this episode. It was kind of strange, and that's one of the things that I didn't like here. Blair apparently likes Drew. I don't know. There was like a small interaction between them, so maybe they like Drew. I honestly don't know. But that's really everything I can say about this episode. Let's get into it overall. So overall, I thought this was a good episode. I definitely really enjoyed it overall. Was this a great episode? No, I definitely will say I don't think this was a great episode. I think this was kind of a lazy, not lazy, I'm not going to say, but this episode just in general wasn't the best. Definitely the premiere I thought was a lot better. The episode, I think there was way too much of relationship stuff. I think they did do some good stuff, though, with the ghosts, which I really enjoyed. The fact that these ghosts are haunting them. The tall man, I feel, is not the villain. I feel the tall man could be the guy that's warning them, or he's kind of showing them that they don't need to fear him, and that there's definitely something, that there's danger afoot. I feel like he saw something back in his day, and the reason he's there is to warn all of them that they're going to be seeing some fucked up shit, and that something terrible is going to happen to all of them. I mean, he's the one that said that someone's going to die if Anton doesn't find him, and Anton did in fact didn't find him, as we know. Blotter found him, so I don't know what's going to happen. There is Blotter dead. I'm assuming Blotter's dead. I don't know if they're going to find out Blotter's dead, though, because of course he was kicked out, so I don't know if they're going to find out Blotter's dead, but I definitely feel like danger's afoot, and definitely things are going to get really bad, but we'll have to see what happens with that. Does Alex have a shot with Amy? No, definitely not after this. There's no way that he has a shot with Amy, but he might have a shot with Cricket, who I don't really like after this episode. I don't know, just something about Cricket. I don't really like her. I just find her way too bland. I know the next episode follows her, so maybe I'll come around on Cricket in the next episode, but I just don't really like her in this one. Just something about her I did not really like. I didn't like the way that she's very shallow, the way she just seems to like Alex, doesn't really care what he does, what's going on there. The drug dealer. How is the drug dealer connected to all this? Because it seems that he has the tall man's bones, and he said the same thing as the tall man, which is it has begun. What has begun? Is he the one that killed Blotter? Is he possessed or something? I honestly don't know what's going on there. Why is everyone seeing these ghosts? What's going on with that? I think that overall is very interesting, and the way that that's all going down, definitely. I like seeing the Deputy Sykes. I think he overall is a very interesting character. Like I said, I don't really like this Joel Deb situation. I think overall that's just dumb. I hope they don't really do much with it, because it's just not really doing much of anything for me right now. I'm not really that into it. But overall, guys, I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying the show. I think it's a fun summer series overall. I'm definitely enjoying it. I don't like Alex. I'll say that. The show really got me to hate Alex, but I'm assuming that we're not supposed to like Alex. I mean, I don't actually think the show wants us to like Alex, because everything they did pretty much assassinated his character if they wanted us to like Alex. I mean, any enjoyment you could have had completely ruined it in that drug scene. So if you want me to like Alex, you guys failed. If you didn't, then props to you, and I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say I think that they wanted us to like Alex. I don't think they want us to like, I think they want us to not like Alex. I think that was the point, but I'm not really sure. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. I really am enjoying the show overall. Hopefully I'll get to episode 3 tonight. I don't know if I will. My next video actually isn't on my channel though. I'm doing a collab review with 22 Tiger Dude. It's gonna go up tomorrow night. Yeah, tomorrow I think, and you guys can see what it is. I'm not gonna tell you guys what it is, but I will see you guys for that. My next video, which of course on this channel will be for episode 3 of Dead of Summer, and I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.